Hitman Havens family, friends, supporters. Look, a lot has happened throughout the league. We, of course, have seen quite a few teams that people didn't think were going to be all that good, be pretty damn good. And we've seen some who are supposed to be great who are struggling. But hey, this is the NFL. Also around the league, very interesting occurrence. One of the better safeties in the National Football League, Derwin James, has been penalized by the NFL New York office with what amounts to a game check because he has been suspended for this week's game. And look, one of the hitmen here, Trey, is very familiar with this at the college level, just in terms of the targeting rule, because they decided that some of his hits were of the targeting variety. So looking at what occurred here, T, does this look like something fair at the NFL level?
It's really hard to determine. It's like you get it, and the emphasis on player safety, that's been an ongoing thing for forever at this point. But like a hit and disqualifying a guy in that game, all right, that's one thing. In the NFL, you kind of get a warning unless you have like a really egregious situation. And, obviously Derwin got ejected from the game. It is what it is. But removing guys from a complete, following game, it's saying it's repeated behavior as if it's not, a play that still comes within the realm of normal football is really hard. Yes, you can try a little harder to avoid helmet-to-helmet contact, but at the end of the day, the game is still played extremely fast. Things happen. So for a guy like Derwin, you're talking about probably $1 million that he's losing potentially with the kind of contract he has.
It's definitely close to $1 million check, without a doubt.
So but because of something that happens in a matter of 2 seconds. And I get it. He's had other instances before. It's just, it sets a tough precedent. And then come to find out that the team on their schedule is the Chiefs. Two-time reigning champs, perennially one of the best teams in the league. And now you have one of the best players on your team and across the league not able to play because of something that still, at the end of the day, it might not have been the safest hit, but it wasn't an inherently dirty play. He wasn't doing anything to violate the game or the sanctity of the game in any way. So it's really hard to digest from that perspective. I know the league doesn't want guys running in there and messing their head up. They don't want that long-term issue. They don't want neck injuries and bad concussions, kind of like what's going on with Tua and things like that. It's just tough. Like you feel for Derwin. I think some of the hits he's had have, you're like, all right, probably just shouldn't have been in that position. Other ones, you're like, it's just tough. It's bang, bang plays. It's this guy adjusts his angle, his head at the very last second, and now it's the defender's job to do it. So next time an offensive guy lowers their head, are we going to see the same type of enforcement when it comes to the disqualification, the suspension, whatever else? If so, then, it's a fair playing field across the board. But I think particularly as a defender, it's already really hard, and to be talking about taking away game checks and suspensions, that's just that's a tough pill to swallow.
And consistency, I think, is the issue. These officials in quite a few things, even beyond just this, from looking at whether or not this was an egregious type of situation, which I do not believe it was. It was one of those things that probably all of us have made that tackle before. Because if you have to get somebody down, and in everything he did, the only thing that ended up happening was because of the angle of the tackle, the top of his helmet did end up coming across the front of the face mask of the runner. And that, to me, how do you decide on whether, because I look at it as, was it purposeful? Was he trying to hurt him? What are we doing in terms of policing the game at this point? Because there are a lot of different things that go on in a football game. It's one of the most dangerous activities that you can do. We've all decided to do it. We signed up for it. We know that it's an inherently dangerous game. And I certainly do want them to save, in some cases, players from themselves. You don't want to see players ducking their heads. But I think you remember the one, it was a college game where probably the best example of what not to do that we've ever seen, and it might have been Florida State, but the young man literally jumps in the air and almost headbutts the
Yeah.
receiver who's trying to catch the ball, the crown of his helmet. I mean, that's worthy of ejection. And also it's egregious. And really, you need to save that player from himself. That type of stuff. I mean, I'm with you, and that's a tough deal. I mean, you mean to tell me that even after taxes, you talking about, you're giving away $700,000 for a tackle? I mean, that's rough, man. That's a tough one for me to swallow in a game that has such physicality and violence as an inherent part of it. That's a tough one to swallow, and I certainly feel for him. And he did appeal it, and he lost the appeal, so it's a done deal. He's going to miss this game, and he's going to miss that check. So moving on to our Green Bay Packers will be hosting the Minnesota Vikings. This is a division opponent, and this is the division opponent that most people had finishing at the bottom of the division, and they are right now sitting at the top. They have a new quarterback who has come in and played better than he's played at any point that we've seen in his career from a consistency standpoint. However, he was 3-0 from what I understand when he was starting for Carolina. So he's done that before. This is one of those things where you gotta, okay, let's see. And the question on our side, of course, the one that we need to address first, because of course everybody is talking about it on social media, and it's the question of the day. And they try in every way that they can to ask Matt LaFleur where Jordan is in terms of his, rehabilitation, and how healthy is he? Is basically, they ask everything except, hey, look, is he playing this week or not? So he's letting it do what it do, and which is what he should do. Just like Mike Tomlin does when they ask him about if he's going to name Justin his starter. You don't have to, so you don't. But of course, Malik has been beyond good. In his 2 starts and what he's been asked to do. So, with all of these questions on the table, all of the debates, what about it to you is worthy of conversation?
I think the biggest thing is just keep monitoring where Jordan is currently at. I think most of us saw the footage of him working out pregame in Tennessee, and that looked like a guy who was prepared to play. Obviously, the staff was like, hey, we're comfortable enough with Malik at this point where we're at in the season, where he's at with learning the offense and what the game plan looked like, that they felt, hey, we can hold off whether or not you're ready, because we don't know that case. You can hold off. And obviously they were right. They looked great against Tennessee, led by Malik. And now you're coming into a division game that means a little more against a team that's 3-0. And really all the options are on the table. So I think that's the biggest thing is, regardless of what happens, they've been able to give Jordan a full 2 weeks, 3 weeks if you include all the days leading up to Sunday. And they have everything at their disposal, whether it's Malik starts again, you're comfortable with that given what's happened the last 2 weeks. Jordan starts, you're comfortable with that because they're going to put him out there when he's ready to go. And a week removed from the workout he had Sunday, you feel like he'd probably be feeling close to his normal self. Or Jordan plays, we find a role for Malik, which I think could be something that the staff could be interested in doing anyway, simply because Malik poses some unique threats that they haven't had in the past, and that when you have guys who can be weapons in certain areas, you use them. So I think just at this point, everything's on the table, and you have to be comfortable with really anything they could decide to do.
And I think that Matt LaFleur should do exactly what he's doing with these questions. All of the talk is for us to try to come up with what might happen on Sunday and just look at what's happening during the week in order to surmise, or at least put together, based upon the clues, what that might be. But regardless, the thing that you hit on that I think is most important to this situation is Malik needs to play whether Jordan is playing or not. And the reason I say that is because what he's shown us is that he's not somebody who should be holding a clipboard a whole game in the NFL. He's somebody you should use where you see an opportunity to let his skill set take advantage of the defense. And shoot, if I were the coach, man, and I'm sure, like they always say, Matt LaFleur is in his lab. I know that he's watched this young man and said, there are some things I can do with him, even when Jordan comes back. I'll have them both out there at the same time, as a matter of fact. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do when both of them are standing back there in their backfield? You trying to figure out what's going on here. This pass play, this run play, what's going to happen here? And the fact of the matter as it relates to Malik is that he's proven to be an asset. Now, Jordan, relative to being the quarterback of this team, it certainly has to be a long game when we look at who he is to the organization. He is our franchise quarterback. And no matter how good he may look going through a warm-up or going through a practice week, if when his knee is tested, it's not stable enough for the doctor to sign off on it, then that wouldn't be something that's good for any of us, for him to go out there and be in a situation where he could hurt it even worse. However, again, like I said, if Jordan can play and there are no further injury risks than what we already know exists in the game, then by all means, you bring back your franchise quarterback with the type of arm talent that Jordan has. And as I stated, then you also have packages that are going to utilize this weapon, who more than likely at some point you're going to be leveraging him for something else. You're going to be leveraging him because if he's going to be a starting quarterback, it's going to be somewhere else in the National Football League. It won't be with the Green Bay Packers. But while we have him, we need to make sure that we take advantage of this asset that we have. So we move on and looking at this matchup with the surprising Vikings, who are absolutely playing well. And there are things that you can certainly see that are not flukes in their game. And we'll do like we always do, starting on the offensive side of the ball. So our offense, their defense. What are your matchups there or anything there worthy of sharing with the audience?
I think the biggest thing for our offense is Minnesota is going to bring a ton of different looks defensively. That's part of what Coach Flores does. That's part of that Coach Belichick Patriots tree of defense. That's just how they play. They're going to line up in very unique ways. They're going to line up in what looks like zero, and it's going to be all kinds of crazy coverages, and that's just how they like to play. It presents a unique set of problems for you as an offense. So I think the biggest thing is we have to attack them on the perimeter. I think our skill guys versus their defensive skill guys, I think we have them on paper and just based on what our guys produce. I think our guys can win a lot of those matchups. I think that's where this week is able to be won. I don't think they're as formidable up front defensively, and especially with the D-line as Tennessee was, but they do have some players there and the unique fronts and different looks that can make it hard to do a lot of those kinds of things. So you have to get on the perimeter, get your guys in one-on-one situations, which when you play a lot of cover zero, if you're able to protect well, you'll be able to exploit those one-on-one situations. And when we have guys that are bigger and faster and better at the catch point than their DBs, those are situations you want to see guys end up in, and I think they'll have a lot of confidence in being able to win those matchups.
And the matchups, to me, is where you look at us having the advantage. Schematically, it's going to be a matter of, can we get them out of all of those disguises? And what I believe you do is you run them out of it, because having all of those different guys who are coming in and out of the front seven in their blitzes, I mean, they're literally utilizing linebackers. They're utilizing safeties. They'll have the safety up. And like you said, they'll look like a zero. They'll drop out. It could be an inverted cover two, where the safeties are literally in the flat and the corners are the half field cover guys. So these are things that a lot of particularly young quarterbacks aren't used to seeing. And when you look at who they've played, talent is one thing, experience is another. What have you seen? What have you actually been able to face and develop a plan against? And to me, one of the things that Flores was able to do up to this point is just confuse the teams that he's gone against. But again, if you're talking about man for man, talent, we have the people to be able to hold up against the people they have if we're disciplined enough and if we actually make the right calls and if we're not basically fooled by what they're doing. Now, if we can run it down their throat, because the other thing that I saw a vulnerability of theirs is when you got all those guys up there standing up, what are they going to do against the run? I mean, you better hope we're passing the ball because we literally have leverage on you immediately. Because if we catch you before you're ready to go with all that shifting and standing up, and look at here, we might run for another 188 yards this week. But I think those are two of the keys. One area you hit on, the matchups outside, they don't have anybody that can run with anybody we have. Like, nobody. Matter of fact, their linebackers might be faster than their secondary right now. Their guys are just disciplined. They're savvy vets, and they know how to play the coverages that they have. But if they get caught one-on-one up the field with any of our skill guys, then it's going to be a showtime because they do not have the guys to win those one-on-one matchups. And that's where we have to make them pay. Like I said, the run game, we got to really smash them with the run game because they count on you getting behind the sticks so that they can pin their ears back and come. And they can do all that crazy stuff that's really almost doesn't even look fundamentally sound to me, Trey. I mean, they were lining up last week. They literally had nobody from guard to guard. I'm like, why doesn't the Texans just run straight ahead? There's nobody from guard to guard there. Now, of course, they loop around and all that stuff, but look, it's hard to make tackles when you're lined up in the position right there. You mean to tell me they're going to tackle Josh if they're on guard to guard and we hand the ball to him straight down the middle of the field? So, again, I think we just got to have the right plan for all the things that they're doing and not be so set in what the call is that we can't see what they have and have something for it. So all of those audibles, all those checks, all the things that we are used to being, that people were complaining about with Aaron Rodgers, that's needed in this game right here. We need the quarterback to be able to look and see what's over there and have a plan or have an option for it. And look, we know that Matt LaFleur is offensively a guy who most people around the league feel like is a savant. He has that on lock, and I'm thinking that he's thinking a lot of the same things we're thinking, and he has a plan for it. So I'm not saying it like they don't have that. I'm just giving it from a more layman's standpoint for the fans to be able to have an idea of what the coaches are probably looking at when they see this defense and say, well, what can we do against it? You run them out of it, and then you win those athletic matchups because that's what happens when you start getting up the field. You know, scheme only helps you out so much when you have the guy in front of you. When you have the guy even with you, you gotta be a better athlete than he is. And we don't have that problem on our side when it comes to our skill guys. So I just believe we have to win those matchups. Then we move to the defensive side of the ball. Now, the interesting thing about defensively is we are going into a game where we've literally gotten almost the same information from the offensive line standpoint that we were getting last week. We have two guys that are literally almost the worst at their position in the National Football League, and that's their center and their right guard. I mean, I'm talking about bottom in pass protection, and they're near the bottom as it relates to run. And then you got the tackles and then the left guard who are pretty decent players. But again, you know, T, that what you do is you find the weak link.
Yep.
So what do you think about our defense against their offense?
I think this is the perfect opportunity for, an offense that has confidence. Our defense should be feeling great in terms of from the front to the back. We talked about it last week. If there was a week to gain your confidence as a defensive line and even a linebacker core, last week was the week. And they did just that and then some. So you come into a game where an offense has had some surprising success. You want to see them put back in their place. Bring them back to reality in terms of see if Sam Darnold can not just put together a good 3-game stretch, but can he do it in a division game in Lambeau when it really matters? Because just the reality of it is, in the past he hasn't been able to sustain consistency throughout a season, and especially not in big time games. So, they have, Justin Jefferson on the outside. They have Aaron, who, has been putting up really good numbers, there, even with not even necessarily that high of a volume of carries and targets. But you just want to put them back in those pressure situations. I think our secondary has proven that they are going to be around the ball. X is going to be exactly what we needed in terms of a free safety. So you want to see Jair put pressure on Justin. You want to see maybe have some layered coverages with Jair underneath, making his day a little harder, X over the top, kind of just trying to bait him into some things. Make Sam make the really hard plays and let the defensive line eat against, some guys that aren't really prepared, and a defensive line that should be as confident as probably they've ever been. I don't know many times, even in college or high school, where a defensive line has, 8 sacks, something like that. So that's exactly what you need to springboard into, your first division game against an opponent that, you're really ready to play. We split the series with them, I think, last year and the year before that. So time to get off on a good start when it comes to your division. Be in first place for the division, probably, given that, we'd be 3-1, they'd be 3-1, and we'd obviously have the head-to-head win there. So, I'm looking for a big week from the defense. I think it's a big moment for them. It's a pretty good test, considering they played some inexperienced offenses the last couple of weeks. But that's what you get paid to do, is show up in big moments.
I think what's very interesting in terms of the beating your chest type of thing that a lot of people are doing as it relates to the Vikings is, when you look at who they beat and how they beat them, we got to be real also in assessing everything and break it down to the point we understand that both of the really good teams they played were depleted when they beat them. And one of the teams was one that they didn't even have their top back to be able to take advantage of the running game. So a guy who had run over both of the teams that they played before wasn't available, So you look at the pieces, and we're coming in this game about as healthy as you can be in all of those areas where you're talking about taking advantage of the other team. The additional piece I think that you add to what you were saying up front, our defensive line, this is that week again. Look, nobody inside should be blocking Devontae Wyatt this week based upon what he's proven this season. And this is the game where we need Kenny to actually come alive, because for whatever reason that he's struggled in this new defense, this is the one where, like they say, this is where you get healthy. Because when you got a guy who hadn't been able to block anybody else, then he damn sure shouldn't block a Pro Bowler. This is where you need to be able to come alive and then get your footing back and be the Kenny Clark that we know that he can be. And as far as all of the other guys go, look, that's where our strength is supposed to be. Like we said about, where's the money? Hey, look, Rashawn, look, I don't care which of those tackles is on you, and I don't care how decent they are. You're supposed to be able to win. They supposed to need help when they block Rashawn Gary. That's what type of money he's being paid. It shouldn't be a tackle that's one-on-one with him that's not having a very hard day and giving up some pressures. And by the way, all of them have given up pressures. It's just that the interior guys are ridiculous. They're just awful. I mean, they shouldn't be blocking any of our top line guys. The piece that I'm talking about, I want to add to yours, is Edge Cooper. It's time to release that dude, man. It's time for them to let Edgerrin Cooper go crazy. Man, I thought the damn film, when I was doing my review, I thought that I'd sped the damn film up when he was blitzing. I mean, that's how fast this dude is compared to the rest of the guys moving on the field. He is a weapon on defense, and man, we need to utilize it. This game right here, I believe we have all of the pieces to really make it one that we can win in a convincing manner. And with Ja getting his confidence back, we already got the eraser, and our young safeties, look, they have not backed down to anything from anybody. So knowing what we have over the top, look, I think this is a game where Ja travels. Hey, let's go. It's me and you, JJ. Just like the 1 year, what was it, 22, where he held that joker to like one catch for 2 yards or something. Hey, look, let's have that. That's what it's time to do, because I know he has his confidence back. We saw that last week. He's ready to go. So that's where I see no different than the offense. I think on the defensive side of the ball, we truly have gotten to where we can see the strength on each level. And there are no areas we can say we have weaknesses. Hell, matter of fact, it has flipped in the strength. And we thought coming into the season that our defensive line was one of the strongest in the league. Shit, our secondary is the strongest part of our defense right now. So the fact that they've come alive says everything about what we have the ability to do. In closing out on this game, man, what do you have in terms of just a synopsis for this week, for this team?
I think this is like a tone setter game for this portion of the season, which is going to tell us a lot about, who we have as a team and where we're going to shape out, with the NFC within our division and just how we're going to look. I think you got a team that's playing well, that's riding high on, a surprisingly good start, given that they didn't have any expectations. But on the flip side, we've had expectations. We came into this year knowing that there's no question whether or not we had good players. We have some really great players in key areas, and being able to hold it down while Jordan has been out, even if he still is, there's definitely no question of whether or not they can still compete given the current circumstance. So I think that's what this game is. You don't need any more motivation. It's a divisional opponent who beat you in your place last year. And it didn't look very good last year. So if nothing else, you go out there and you wipe the slate clean of all that going into a new season and set the tone for the division. And I think that's just what it needs to be.
Set the tone, I think, is really the statement of the week. This is it. And I don't think this game should be close. I think that the Packers have that much over this team that has surprised everyone and won their first 3 games. But they didn't play the Packers. They hadn't played the Packers, and they will play them Sunday. And just like the Tennessee Titans defense was number 1 in the league, and according to their players, nobody was going to run on them. 188 yards of rushing later, we found out that the Packers are the real deal, just like we knew they were. Now it's time to do that Sunday and go ahead and show the Minnesota Vikings that they got a little more work to do. So we're going to close this one out, you all. You know where we are. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, continue to dialogue with us on social media. And we look forward to this Sunday because we think this is the one where you get to basically separate the contenders from the pretenders. We got to make sure that we are what we said we were. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And until next time, go Pack, go!